All right, welcome everyone. We are live with today's masterclass on the 1% client code, how to attract, convert, and retain high-end clients on a consistent basis. So this is what we're doing today, what we're talking about today. And we're going to be chatting about how to position yourself and your products for the 1%. We also want to chat about how to generate demand without the grind and with all the hustle by using messaging that converts premium buyers and elevate your brand online, the brand and the content that you share online so that people can find you and convert with you. And then we'll also be touching on delivering a irresistible luxury experience. And then we'll have a quick Q&A for anyone who's live. And I've got a couple of questions here that have been submitted beforehand, so we'll chat about those as well. All right. So this masterclass really is for those of you who have already started. So if you don't have a product, if you don't have a business, you may still attend, of course. But the masterclass is really geared for those that already have a product, either a product idea or already up and running. So if you're still kind of considering whether you should sell something, that may not be the most ideal place to start. But I'm sure you'll still take away some very insightful learnings from this masterclass. But it's not geared necessarily for those who are just starting out and don't have anything set up, don't have any product ideas. So the idea finding, you've already passed that. You may have already had some sales, so you are here because you know that you're ready for more. You want more buyers, you want better buyers, you want more repeat buyers, and you really want to target that high-end clientele, right? Because you know that your product is good, your product is exquisite, you're delivering high-quality work, but maybe you're still in the cycle of just having one-off sales, they come out of nowhere. You don't really have a repeatable system to bring in those clients. So you may have one-off sales, you may get some referrals, some word of mouth that's working for you, but it's not consistent, it's not reliable, and it's not a very strong foundation to build your basis on. Especially for those products that are most profitable to you, that have the highest price tag, and which in most cases are really actually the products that you want to sell. If you currently have a range, you probably want to sell more towards the high end than the lower end product. So today, that's really what the masterclass is for, and I'll show you what the top 1% of product brand founders do a little bit differently, so that you can use some of those already to implement now and not, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the road. So we'll talk about all of that in today's class. Quick slide on me. If you don't know me, if you haven't been in my world for any amount of time, I'm working with private jewelers, fashion designers, and other luxury product founders on building a loyal collector base, on how to elevate their positioning and create high ticket demand without working 24/7 into burnout. And I've been featured in articles and media around the world, as you see on the below. So I really do know what I'm speaking about, and that's why you're here today and why you're keen to learn from me. So really the first step when we think about attracting those high-end 1% clients is what got you here won't get you there, right? So if you've had some sales, even a few big ones, maybe you even sold out some of your limited editions once or twice, but you currently still feel that you're stuck in that cycle where each month you kind of have to start over. You have to think about, where does my next client come from? What do I have to do now so that at the end of the month, I do have some sales coming through? If you're currently there, continuing the same thing won't get you to a higher level, won't get you in front of those higher end clients. So we can't be doing the same thing over and over again and expect a different outcome. We got to shift and change what we're doing in order to attract those more high-end clients. And very probably you're still operating like a maker, like a creative person, a maker, but not as a magnet. What we want to become is being a magnet to bring those high-end clients to us instead of just hustling 24/7, kind of getting them, finding them and converting them. We want to actually be that magnet, right? And so that's a shift that we want to make. And we're going to be talking about some of the aspects needed in that shift today. Because what it is that luxury clients, those 1% clients, I call them, but they're essentially those that buy luxury. They don't only discover you, right? They have to notice you. Otherwise, they scroll right past, because there's a lot of other people out there that sell nice products. So you have to differentiate yourself. So they don't just see you, but they actually notice you, because your presence and your messaging and your identity have to be curated and crafted so that it actually pulls in their attention, and they stop the scroll and they look a bit more closely at what you have to offer. So we have to stand out, but stand out in a way that luxury clients notice. So this is where I'm using the 1% client code, because in order to attract the 1%, the luxury clients, you actually have to start thinking and operating your business like a luxury client, okay? Because they don't just buy. Clients in that high-end space, they don't just buy stuff. They invest. They aspire to be someone who buys those luxury products. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that actually means concrete, right? But they don't see themselves as just buying stuff. They see that product as an extension of themselves, of their personality, of what it means to be them. And so we want to, and we need to, in order to attract those clients, speak to that level. Okay, it's no longer just about the product. It's really about selling that identity. And so today, the 1% client code is really breaking down all of those shifts that we need to make step by step in order to have that complete picture that allows your brands to be coveted and to be invested in by those luxury clients. So that's the 1% client code shift that we're talking about today. The client code consists of those 5 main pillars, and we'll go through them one by one. But all in all, these are the different facets and aspects and pillars that underpin that 1% shift towards those luxury clients. And these are the topics that are the ABCs of marketing to a luxury clientele. And having a brand, the way you set it up and the way you market and you exhibit your brand out into the world, you got to hit all those 5 pillars, which are the authority positioning. You have to have a lead generation and sales strategy that aligns with a luxury client. You need the messaging tuned in to high converting. You need to elevate your content and your brand into the luxury sphere, and you need to provide the luxury client experience. And so we'll talk about all these 5 aspects, and for most of them, I can give you some concrete examples. Others, I will just talk you through what it actually means, because it will be different for every brand, but the core concept is valid and independent, whether you sell jewelry, whether you sell fashion accessories, whether you're even a luxury travel agent or a luxury car brand. It doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, the product that you sell, it's how you sell it through those 5 lenses of the 1% client code. So let's dive into those individual pillars. So pillar 1 is our authority positioning. The reason behind this is we need to be positioned as an authority in our space, because luxury clients, they invest in leaders. They see themselves as leaders as well, and they want to invest in peers, in brands, and in founders that they perceive as authority. So if you don't lead in your space, they won't trust your price point, because your price point matches your authority and your confidence in expressing what you have to offer. The price is not a matter anymore, right? The pricing is not an issue. For luxury buyers, your price is not a hurdle, it's not just a price tag, but it's an expression of your confidence and of the value you put on yourself and on your product as a maker. And so clients see the pricing much more as a signal in how confident are you in what you do and what you deliver, than obviously as a hurdle to be overcome, right, with pricing objections. And so we want to be positioned in whatever you do, whatever product you sell, you want to be the only choice for them. You want to be positioned as you are the leader in the niche, you're the brand for them in that specific product and niche that you are in with your product. Because they don't just want to know what you sell, but they also want to be able to trust you that you deliver what you say you do. And that's got a lot of tie-in with identity. So for a luxury buyer, they are not just buying a product. You are not just selling that product to them. You're selling an aspiration or a reflection of who your client wants to be. Traditionally, we speak a lot about status with luxury clients, but I feel that status is not really the right word, because status can come across as, look at me, what other people think of you, the status in society, like being a bit of a show off. And of course, that aspect is still there. When you wear big name brands, the big, the ones we all know with the big flashy logos, it really screams to everyone around, hey, look at me, I can afford this. That's not necessarily the only aspect of, the reflection of who your client wants to be, or the identity of who they want to be. But putting status aside, luxury clients want to see themselves as someone who can afford high end, right? They think that they're worth it. Obviously, they can afford it, but not everyone who can afford luxury products buys luxury products. So there's a difference there as well. But luxury clients, they really see themselves as worthy of your products, but it has to align with their identity, right? And so this all comes down in how clear you are on who you serve and who you are and what your specific niche is. So if you're a jeweler and your core values are that you are very ethical and you only, that's one of your values, you only sell lab-grown diamonds, for example, right? You have to weave that in, right? You gotta tell people that this is what you do. And yes, you may lose some people that don't want lab-grown diamonds, but others that are aligned with you on this value and on that perspective that you need to share in your content, obviously. But those that are aligned with your perspective, they will find you, right? You will be the one that stands out because you have that leadership and that authority, because you have claimed that and you communicate it in that way, that this is what you believe in, and that's why your business only deals with lab-grown diamonds, right? If then in contrast you have another jeweler that does natural and lab-grown diamonds, they may not stand out as much with clients who only want lab-grown. Okay, and so this is an example of really niching down. You become much clearer. You become the brand, the one brand for that 1% client that you're looking for. So you're not trying to appeal to the masses to have a product for everyone, but you're gonna specialize. And through specialization and through actually having a point of view as to why you use certain products and materials and why you produce the way that you produce, or why you sell only online or only in store. It doesn't really matter which way you go, but you gotta be strategic and have that clarity in this is what I'm doing, and I'm saying yes to this and I'm saying no to everything else. And so once you share that, you are actually building that authority, and you're building that niche authority and leadership, and people will find you because it's very clear what you do, who you are for, who your product is for, and who are not. Right. And so we also want to speak to that identity of being a luxury buyer, because the luxury buyer can afford your price. So we do not have to tell them all the time that you have a luxury price. It's just a given, right? So let's look at some examples. These are not clients of mine. I've just found them online because it fits the purpose of our masterclass here. So on the left-hand side, we have a outdoor fashion brand. And on the right-hand side, we have a brand that sells high-end oral care, so toothpaste, toothbrushes, and mouth spray. And I think both the toothbrushes and the toothpaste are made of gold, or have gold as an ingredient, right? So they're more or less similarly priced, but you see is a very different level of positioning. So on the left-hand side, we have Cortasso, who advertises with the price and advertises with not being cheap. Okay, so their ad says it's no secret, 399 euros for a hard shell jacket is a lot of money. Okay, so they're using that angle. Whereas on the other hand, the Arezzi, the oral care company, has a different angle, has a more luxury branding, has more of that in identity, so zero regrets. If you use the mouthwash here, you'll have nice romantic partners, have a good makeout session. You'll have zero regrets. You have fresh breath, and they also use the features where they've been featured in higher end fashion magazines as that authority builder, right? So they really speak to that identity of wanting to be an attractive person, not having any bad breath, having zero regrets in life. And over here, this is a campaign of theirs for the gifting season, so give oral care. And it's a very different look and feel of usually what we see with oral care, with toothbrushing, a much more luxury feel with the fur coats and the lots of packages in the back. So they're using that as that identity of, okay, we're not talking price because you can afford it if you want gold plated toothbrush and mouth spray with 24K gold in it. You clearly can afford it. So they're really speaking to that higher identity, that 1% client, but they're also using the imaging and the authority building in that, so that you are speaking to the person who wants to be gifting luxury products. And Cortasso, on the other hand, they could also use a very similar luxury branding, but they don't. They're actually speaking to more of the middle market in trying to kind of convince or justify why their product is 400 euros. And if you go down the rabbit hole a little bit, you see that they list a lot of benefits on watertight zippers and whatnot, right? So they're kind of using that material and feature and benefits angle to promote a quite high-end product. So they're not speaking to that 1% client. They're not speaking to the identity, who you are and how you feel when you are protected from the rain after a long outdoor hike. You come into a chalet where the fire is burning. That will be the luxury approach. But they're going in kind of justifying and into a level of explaining and teaching as to why their product is good and why it is priced like that and why you need, they can't make it any cheaper. A whole different approach, and not really one that I would recommend if they wanted to attract a more high-end clientele. And maybe they don't, and that's fine. There's different business models out there that we can use, but this is to show you a little bit the differences between the products and the features and the pricing versus a more luxury look and feel and a more kind of future pacing identity, like who am I once I use that product, and that self-worth and identity of a luxury buyer that wants to be able to give luxury products, that, you know, thinks they're worth having a gold-plated toothbrush in the morning, you know, a brush their teeth with 24K gold, whatever you think of that personally. I think it's a bit funny. But, you know, whatever, it works. And so it's a very good example of luxury branding and speaking to that identity shift. So that was our authority positioning. Then pillar 2 in the 1% client code is when we look at luxury lead generation and sales strategies. Now, I said before, we want to become the magnet instead of pulling and pushing. But of course, the reality is that we have to do some kind of lead generation and sales strategy in order to then magnetize, right? So, you know, if I could just give you one thing, then yes, you as a lead, as a luxury brand, you still need to generate leads, you still need sales strategies. And finally, the big box luxury brands, they never talk about that, but they do that behind the scenes. I've worked with the top luxury brands in fashion and jewelry, and they do lead generation sales. They just do it very differently. So let's talk about how they do that. You need a lead generation system, but it has to feel like your brand. It has to be intentional. It has to be quite exclusive. It has to be elevated. And one of my clients actually said it's very beautiful. She said, my lead generation is fine-tuned so that I can choose who I work with, right? So it's, yes, we're going out and looking at, you know, getting people to come to us. But at the end of the day, we filter out and we only want to attract and bring those people inside our brands that are super aligned with what we're doing. And so this is what pillar 2 is about. So it needs to be intentional, it needs to be exclusive, and it needs to be elevated. Because the 1%, they don't buy because they need anything, right? Nobody needs jewelry. You can live without jewelry, right? Nobody needs a $2,000 tailored suit. Not necessarily. You won't die if you don't have it. You don't need a gold-plated toothbrush. You don't need it, but you want it, right? So because it's not a necessity, it's a luxury. They buy because they're compelled to buy. They like it, they want it, it aligns with their identity. And your job as a luxury brand owner and marketer is to create that pull. So they want to have it and they only want to have yours, right? So they come to you, but you still need to create that pull from the magnet. Okay, and then your lead flow must feel like a boutique experience. It's got to be clear. It's got to be high end. So it's got to be very personalized. You got to have follow-ups that are not a dime a dozen, and your positioning needs to be on you know, spot on. And we use that inside with my clients. We use Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Okay. Probably not the first ones you think of as luxury platforms, but they're not just content platforms. They're actually, the way we use them, luxury client pipelines. But you gotta use them right, okay? They have pros and cons of all these platforms. And inside my programs, we use them in a very specific way, step by step, to funnel clients into your world. So let's have a look at what that looks like. So this is an example of a lead generation and sales funnel or system for one of my clients. So she is specializing in redesigning heirloom jewelry. So using clients' old jewelry or inherited jewelry or things they don't wear anymore and repurposing them into a new design. And my client is using the platforms that I just talked about, so Instagram, YouTube. and LinkedIn to distribute content that's very intentional and is very strategic. So for example, on YouTube, she has a variety of videos talking about the topic of heirloom jewelry. So there's different angles that we look at as to some of the videos that she has. So she talks about the 5 things you need to know when you think about redesigning your heirloom jewelry, giving some tips. Then how you preserve the memories without preserving the actual jewelry or ring or watch, whatever you have. So preserving the memory, but make it you. Then addressing some of the concerns, etc. And all these videos position her as authority, right? So she is the authority because she has those videos up. Whoever watches it makes directly the link that she's the leader in this space because she's one of the few who actually talks about that in detail. And then that content is very strategically mapped out to what we then want someone that's interested in to take the next steps in the journey. YouTube we use for evergreen content. Okay, so evergreen content means content that's up there and can be found 2 years, 3 years from now. I have videos on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, from 4 years that I've recorded 4 years ago, and they're still being watched every week. YouTube is part of Google, part of the bigger Google family, and so it's very searchable. So if you type something into Google, your videos will come up. And it's a beautiful way to be found, get new eyes on the same content that you created one time, and can then repurpose into other content pieces as well. Right, so this is one of the core pillars of our new work on YouTube. You can actually showcase your products and your expertise. And that's why videos are very helpful, because they really, I call it collapse time. They collapse time in building that trust. Someone that's seen you on video thinks that they know you, they see how you look, they hear you talk, so they know you're a real person. And that trust is just, that trust factor is just built much quicker through video than just something that you are writing. Okay, so that's why we use video. YouTube is great to be found and for evergreen content, but it's not really made to interact one-on-one. Okay, there's no way that you can send someone a DM or start a conversation. So what we then use YouTube for is being found, being positioned as an authority, and then having a link. You can actually link to a lead magnet or a downloadable resource, or something that you have that clients can take away if they're not straight going to buy, which most aren't. And for Tara's case here, she has a jewelry redesign guide kind of packaged into a neat little booklet that people can download, either through YouTube or as well when she shares content on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a great platform for anyone who's selling luxury products, because it's the social media platform with the most affluent users. Now, if you're old like me, you know, LinkedIn used to be just kind of your online version of your CV. It's not. It has really, in the last 5 years, evolved into much more of a social media platform, and you can see new features coming out, like videos and all these things. It's not longer an online CV anymore. Okay, I tell all my clients to go and post on LinkedIn because it's got the most high-end client base of all. It allows you to post. Most people on LinkedIn don't post. So if you're posting, you're already able to claim that authority, that leadership in your niche, whatever it is that you do, whatever product you sell. LinkedIn is a great way to do that. So then we're using the same content, we can repurpose some of the videos, we post that on LinkedIn. We get additional features where you can actually download the same booklet that we use in YouTube. You can also have that on LinkedIn. So here, Tara has that on her feature page. And then obviously LinkedIn can also facilitate a conversation. So it's not just posting, but there is actually the opportunity for someone that sees that to either download the guide or slide into your private messages and message you. So that's the second channel that we use. And then the third channel is Instagram. Instagram is highly conversational. There's a lot of ways that you can communicate on Instagram through the comments, through stories, through DMs. And it's really where we showcase the same content, but with a slightly different angle. And you can see here one of the posts that she has up is of one of the creations that feature also in the videos, which has been a heritage redesign project. And she uses my DOS storytelling framework to talk people through this particular client commission, right? So we always speak to the way that we talk about the client that came in. We wanted to hit a couple points, which I explain in the DOS storytelling framework. We want to hit those desires, and we want to frame it in such a way that potential future clients can see themselves in the shoes of that client. So take them through the whole process, but also highlighting your authority in that case. So this is the three content channels that we have: YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And we're basically repurposing a lot of things. So we're creating a couple of core content, and then from a video, you can create several posts. From videos, you can create a downloadable, vice versa. So it's not like you have to become a content producer and a media company to do that. We can actually be very strategic and intentional, and that's what I teach my clients in our programs. So then all of that is actually meant to position and attract clients. And so this is a message she got then in her LinkedIn inbox from someone who saw what she was doing and had some questions about, how can I work with you? And that's obviously what we want. We want to generate those leads, and then we want to have them come to us, and then we are going to convert into sales. And that's happened here beautifully in this example. So this is pillar 2, lead generation and sales, which we obviously set up and then fine tune over time, as well as we know what works and what doesn't. Then we have pillar 3 in the 1% client code. So pillar 3 is the high converting messaging. It really is about how you talk about your products. And we touched a little bit on that in the first examples with the outdoor jacket and the gold-plated toothbrushes, that we need to speak a certain way in order to attract a high-end client, okay? So we really want to be very precise. We want to use good language. We want to talk about that identity shift that they're going to be making when they wear or carry or use our products. And we want to make sure we have that exclusivity, right? We don't want to use urgencies like, the buy now or it's forever gone. That's not very luxury. Scarcity, we can use that in a sense of it's limited edition. If you only have made 5 products, then you will only have 5 products. That's fine, but we're going to frame it as exclusivity and not scarcity, okay? We also don't want to have we don't need all the gimmicks, all the pop-ups with discounts and all of that. We don't need that, right? We have luxury messaging, and we speak about the exclusivity and about the identity of your future client. And we also do not talk only about features. We want to talk about the emotion and the self-perception, the shift in perception when they use your product. Yes, on the product pages and when we describe the products, we will talk about materials, right? You will say, this is silk and not polyester, but it's not going to be the main key message, okay? The key message will be around that identity and the exclusivity and what it means to be the owner of a product that you have created. So we want to position our products as the obvious next steps for someone, right, who already sees them as deserving. We are not here to convince that they should buy luxury. We're not here to say, well, our product is better because of all these 5 features. We just assume we know it. We can talk about it, but we're not convincing, right? We also don't use what I call struggle language. Okay. For example, talk about one of my pet peeves is people calling their products affordable luxury. Okay, they're basically saying you get a luxury product but for a cheap price, which is ludicrous, I believe. Because a luxury product is always affordable. It's just affordable to a smaller percentage of the buyers, right? And so when you have a luxury product, you target the people that can buy it, right? It's always affordable is always relative to the person buying. What's affordable to you may not be affordable to me, may not be affordable to the billionaire, or maybe affordable to the billionaire, but not the person who's on food stamps, to be, using a very extreme example. So affordable is really doesn't even come into play. If you want a luxury product, you gotta have to pay the price for a luxury product, or otherwise, you have champagne taste but a beer budget. Well, then that's it. That's not your problem as the maker. If someone does not have the budget for your product, it's a them problem, right? So either they go find the money or they go look somewhere else. But if you want to target the 1%, want to target the luxury buyer, we need to stop using any of those struggle language. And the ad that I showed you earlier in the first pillar with the kind of explaining why their jacket costs $400, that's, for me, that's struggle language. Okay, they should speak to someone who is willing and absolutely happy to pay $400 for a really good jacket that does exactly what they need. So that's the difference. So we want to be very clear, and then we want to, when we have the authority, when we have the conviction in really being the person and having the product that the luxury people want to buy, we want to position the product as the obvious next steps. Okay, because we're speaking to that buyer's self-identity. They see themselves as elite. Again, elite has a negative connotation for a lot of people, but elite in the sense of I can afford something that is $1,000, $2,000, $5,000, $10,000, $500,000. Okay, they see themselves, and we want to speak to people. You will only want to attract those people that believe in that as well. Okay, and they may be luxury buyers in your specific niche. So just because someone spends a lot of money on one aspect of their lives doesn't mean they buy luxury everywhere. Okay, we do have the fractional luxury buyers that spend a lot of money, maybe on jewelry, maybe on fashion, but maybe they don't spend a lot of money on travel, or vice versa. They spend a lot of money on travel, luxury travel, fly business class, first class, but don't spend a lot of money on other things because it's not important to them. But that's okay, because we're only looking for the luxury buyers in your niche and the ones that spend money on luxury products in your area. So that was pillar 3, our high converting messages. And they're really specific to your brand. And when I work with clients, we really go deep into what that means for their specific brand. There's no one size fits all that we can apply here. So the 4th pillar then in the whole framework is our content and brand elevation. So we want to be building a presence, and with presence, I mean the visuals, but also how you speak, how your website is designed, how your socials are designed, maybe if you have a physical space, how that is designed. It all has to match, right? We want to make sure that it's a high-end experience throughout, and that your content that you share is luxury. Okay, and I've put it down here, like content isn't just marketing, it's memory making. Anything that you put out reflects on your brand. So I'd rather you create a couple of core content pieces every week, 1 or 2, that you can then repurpose, than pumping out marketing, posts and marketing stuff that is not reflective of your brand. More is not always better, but we want to create in a way that we can actually repurpose a lot of the things. So when I showed you Tara's example from YouTube to LinkedIn to Instagram, it's actually all coming from one core content. And then we massage it for the different platforms. Different platforms have just a slightly different way of using content. And so we kind of use that, right? We do a lot of storytelling, the behind the scenes, but also storytelling around clients, around your values, why your product is made the way it is, right? Why you use certain materials, why you do handmade, right? Things that you do by hand, things that you use machinery for. We can, when that aligns with the values, we can talk about that. Okay, we don't need a lot of bells and whistles and dancing and all that. We really want to go to the core and repeat that over and over again in different ways. We do want to have a certain aesthetic as part of the authority, but that doesn't mean that all luxury brands have to look the same. We also want it to be distinctive, so that you stand out in the sea of all the other brands out there. But yes, aesthetics are part of the authority, especially if you have a product. So your photos need to be nice. Product photos, you don't need to have a lot, but you have the couple that you have and that you share, they need to look high quality. But the most important signal is consistency and confidence. So consistently post and communicate around your brand, around your products. Consistency as well in pricing. So we don't want to advertise your highest products and then the next day your most low-end product, because then we price anchor at the lower end, which is human nature. Once we know, the lower end, that's kind of everything that we measure against. So we want to have the confidence of a luxury brand, communicate that, and then we also want to have the consistency to just keep doing that in slightly different ways every week and every month, so that we can also signal that we are here to stay. We're a legacy brand. We're not, a one-trick pony and a one-song, one-hit wonder. We are here to stay, and that's what luxury buyers are looking for. So that was pillar 4, and then pillar 5, and the final pillar is our luxury client experience. We always say that how you make them feel, is more important. They'll forget the price. They'll never forget how you make them feel. Obviously, for luxury products, the price isn't that relevant to our luxury buyers, but they want to know, they want to feel. They're very emotional. Luxury is very emotional because it's tied to that self-identity. And so we want to make sure that we hit a nice client experience from the get-go. So your messaging, your thank you notes that you send with your products, it should feel intentional. It doesn't have to be over the top. It doesn't have to be sending everyone champagne, bottled champagne, whatever. But it has to be, it can be small, it can be thoughtful, but it's got to be intentional and it's got to be personal. The one thing that smaller independent brands have absolute priority over and can actually claim, which none of the big luxury brands can do anymore, is a personal note from the founder, right? Mr. Gucci and Mr. Versace, they're all dead. They can't do that. But you, as a luxury brand founder, you can write to your clients a handwritten note. And clients actually appreciate hearing from the brand owner. They kind of feel like they're so special and supporting someone's dream, but also feeling, that identity of, oh, I've discovered this amazing brand. It makes them really feel good about themselves. Plus, you can actually tell your story because you're still around. Okay, the big box luxury brands, they have to rehash all the old stuff from the archives and their history. They've got legacy, yes, but they can't send out handwritten notes from the founder. So that's really, I think, a really big upside to being an independent brand these days, that you can actually leverage that. So we want to build that premium experience because it will help with word of mouth, but it will also help with brand loyalty. And so your best clients will come back. Once we've got them in, we want to keep them, right? Someone that has bought from you before is much more likely to buy again. And we all know it's cheaper to keep an existing client than finding a new one, not just cheaper in money, but cheaper in time, because you have the relationship with them. You've built the trust with them. And so that's what you can do then to keep the premium experience alive. There's a lot of sales strategies as well that I teach on how to get people to come back to buy from you again and again. We map out what could the next best product be and how we get that in front of them. But the focus for today is really to get first off into the world of the 1% client. And then once you have them, it won't be that hard for you to keep them coming back more and more. And luxury as well. It's not just about the features, right? We want to remove friction. So we talk a lot about the white glove service. And it's not just necessarily literally white gloves and elegance and you're someone that opens the door for you at the store or all of that. But we want to remove friction. So we want to give the ease, right? The ease of working with you, or the ease of buying from you. Is it hard to book a consultation with you? If I want to have a one-on-one consultation with you because you're going to be building something for me or making something for me, bespoke, how hard is it? Do I have to click through 5 different links to get onto your calendar? Is it easy to send you a message if I want that? Is it easy to navigate your website or navigate your social? So we have to make sure everything is there, but it's got to be easy and it's got to be frictionless, because when you have a lot of volume, it's okay if through friction 1 or 2% of your clients fall off because they can't be bothered to click through a myriad of forms or whatnot on your website in order to buy from you or to connect with you. But we are in the value business and not the volume business. So if we have only 5 clients, we don't want to lose one of those 5 clients to something that can easily be fixed in that white glove service. I want to make sure it's super easy to connect with you. Okay. We do the filtering once they've connected. If they're not an ideal client, that's fine. We filter them out, but it's got to be easy to connect with you. And once they're in, they'll get the luxury client experience from you. So then really the 1% client code is what it takes today to be successful with an independent luxury brand. Okay, the costs are rising, whether or not we have tariffs. One day they're on, one day they're off. We never know. But really, stuff is not getting cheaper. So having a high-end business and a high-end business model is, I believe, for an independent brand that is not going to be looking to massively scale into being in every city around the world, is really the way to go, because I believe that this is the most sustainable way of running a business. But then again, it's not just having a great beautiful, high quality product. In order in today's market to get those high-end clients, you need all of that, what we've covered today. So you need the authority to earn the attention. You need to be able to present your brand as such. You need messaging. We want to have messaging that moves with that emotion that the client should feel. Then we want to have those lead gen and sales systems that sell with the elegance. And ideally sell without you having to do all the selling, right? It's not fully automated, but some parts should be automated so that you can actually give the premium client experience at the touch points that are needed. And the other touch points behind the scenes, we want to have that streamlined as much as possible so that you can give that luxury client experience, but also make sure that the brand feels very premium. So that's what I call the 1% shift, implementing the 1% client code. For me and for my clients, it's no longer a nice to have. It's really the next level of taking the brand. So let's hop into the live Q&A. Let me check the chat if we have any questions from anyone. Let me know if you want to ask a live question. Let me get that. I don't seem to have anyone with a question in the chat, but I have a question that was submitted from a participant who can't be here. Let me just give me 2 seconds to look that up. Yes, so she was asking about where to find luxury clients. She has a jewelry brand, fine jewelry. Yes. So the easiest way is to go use lookalike. So if you already have a client base, if you already sold jewelry at that high end, and you just want more of those high-end clients, then obviously we want to look at the common denominators of those clients that you've already had, like where did they come from, what are the characteristics, what else do they buy, and then we would go out and look for similar people like them. Now there's different ways we can do that. Depends a little bit on the approach. LinkedIn is a very good platform to actually find people if we have certain criteria. So if we know the areas that they live in, the educational level, the jobs that they have, then we can go and find more. We can also look at who your current clients that you're connected with there as well, who they are connected to. So usually your top clients know others that are have a similar, level of income or have a similar need or desire for luxury products. So that's always where we would start. Very often it's funny how clients are made up. So your client base, when we look at clients and sometimes we find weird coincidences, like they're all in accounting or they're all real estate agents. The profession doesn't always have anything to do with the jewelry they buy or the products that they buy. But it's not causation, it's correlation. We use that to kick that off. So what we usually do is we really go and try to find out second or third degree connections, and then getting into the same groups or striking up a conversation, which is what I call the soft luxury outreach. So it's not cold emailing or cold outreach, hard selling your product to anyone, but it's starting to build conversations and getting into the same room as people. So for proactive outreach, LinkedIn is really great. Another way to tap into an already existing clientele that is vetted, it will be through strategic partners. So if you're a fashion brand, you would team up with a jewelry brand or a florist or anyone in the same level, but not in the same industry, but serving the same clientele. And you put up an event or an online event or an in-store event, or you tap into each other's newsletters. And so that way you can get exposed to new people that don't know you, but they're already vetted because they're part of someone else's clientele. And they have vetted them. Combinations that I've worked with, fashion and automotive. Banking is always interested in, because they have high-end clients, but their industry is really boring. Like they need to entertain their clients, but they have nothing to offer apart from, obviously very boring office space. So they're always looking to entertain their clients at an event or with something that's a bit fancy. So if you can provide that, then the more boring high-end businesses like banking, insurance, and things like that, may be an interesting combination to tap into a new clientele. Anything that's focused for male and then bring their female partners, vice versa, things like that usually work well. And then really hone in on your online marketing and outreach. So being very clear on who you target, and the more niche you are, the easier it is. And that's why niching down is so beautiful, because when you niche, you speak to fewer people, but those people are much easier to find. If you're serving men between 30 and 40, but also women 55 plus, you have to do both. But if you're only doing women 55 plus, you can go down the rabbit hole. It's where do they hang out? What do they read? Where do they connect? What do they appreciate? What other products do they buy? And then that way you can get into their world. And it's much easier to do that the more you niche down. So that would be one of my suggestions. Let me check the chat again. Nobody has a question. That's fine. You can always DM or email if you have anything else that you want to ask leading up to after this masterclass. And we're right on time. So thank you so much for being here today and for watching the replay, everyone at home. I know time zones are always a bit tricky with my international clientele, going from the US down to Australia. Try to kind of squeeze it in the middle where most people can make it. But if you watch this in the replay, thanks so much. And please reach out if you have any questions, or if you're interested in working with me, let me know. And I wish you all a pleasant rest of the day. Bye.